When Louis XIV crashes the ghostly party, the Sun King shines and struts in Westminster. It was yet another uproarious night in the spectral halls of Westminster Abbey, where the famous ghosts of Britain's history had gathered for their nightly bout of merriment, scandal, and excessive amounts of ghostly wine. Sir Winston Churchill, ever the host, was at the helm of the evening's proceedings, a cigar firmly wedged between his lips and a glass of whiskey that somehow never ran dry. This narrative is sponsored by Polly Speaks For You. The creator of Polly Speaks For You has always been passionate about empowering individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, through text-to-speech and voice recognition technology. Polly Speaks For You isn't just a tool. It's a bridge for people to communicate and interact with the world in a meaningful way. By blending historical storytelling with cutting-edge tech, the creator showcases how powerful a voice can be, whether telling your own story or preserving history. So hit that like, share, and subscribe button and help this channel grow. Now back to the story. The usual crew was in attendance. Henry VIII, who always made a grand entrance, had already declared himself king of turkey legs and was halfway through his third spectral roast. Charles II, the merry monarch, was lazily reclining in a corner, occasionally tossing a witty remark at Pepys, who was nervously scribbling notes on how many times Charles had told the same joke in the past hour. Queen Elizabeth I, eyeing everyone with her signature imperious gaze, was keeping the rowdy monarchs in check. Well, as much as anyone could. Just as the wine was flowing and Pepys was about to be coerced into reenacting his infamous diary entries for the umpteenth time, the grand doors to the hall burst open with a whoosh that could only mean one thing. Someone had come to make an entrance. And oh, what an entrance it was. A blinding, golden light streamed into the hall, nearly knocking over Henry VIII's turkey leg. The assembled ghosts shielded their eyes as a dramatically regal voice rang out. "Behold, it is I, Louis XIV, the Sun King, and I have come to grace you with my divine presence." Out of the glowing mist emerged Louis XIV himself, decked out in the most absurdly luxurious robes any of them had ever seen. His heels were so high, it looked like he might topple over at any moment, but somehow he managed to stride into the room with the confidence of someone who believed their portrait should hang in every room of the afterlife. Sir Winston took one look at Louis, puffed on his cigar, and muttered to Henry VIII, "Blimey, I thought I was dramatic." Henry, wiping turkey grease from his chin, muttered back, "The French always did have a flair for theatricality." Louis paused in the center of the room, striking a pose that could only be described as regal peacock. He surveyed the group with a haughty smile. "Ah, my dear English friends," he began, "I see your little gatherings continue. But fear not. I, the Sun King, have come to show you how to truly shine." Henry VIII, ever the blunt one, barked out a laugh. "Shine? Mate, the only thing shining is that ridiculous wig of yours." Louis gasped as if Henry had just insulted his entire lineage, which in Louis's mind was probably worse than an actual insult. Ridiculous? This wig is the pinnacle of French fashion. It represents my divine right to rule. Charles II, always up for a bit of banter, sauntered over. "Divine right, eh? I thought those heels were for that." Laughter erupted from the crowd as Louis scowled. He looked down at his bejeweled heels, then back at Charles with a defiant glare. "These heels, dear Charles, are a symbol of my greatness. They elevate me above the common man, and clearly above you." Pepys, always one to document chaos, hurriedly scribbled in his notebook, already thinking of how he could work this into his next spectral gossip column. Sir Winston, ever the peacemaker, raised his glass. Now, Louis, we're all equals here." "Well, except maybe for Henry, but that's just because he's eaten half the feast." Henry raised his turkey leg in mock salute. "Equal perhaps, but no one's touching this turkey." Louis, not one to be outdone, dramatically waved his hand and, with a flourish, summoned a ghostly French orchestra out of thin air. The musicians, dressed in powdered wigs and looking slightly disgruntled about being summoned to England, began to play a sweeping, regal melody. "Ah!" Louis cried, twirling on his heels with a flourish that nearly knocked over a candelabra. Let me show you what true entertainment looks like. This is art, this is grandeur, this is utter nonsense. Queen Elizabeth I interjected, her piercing voice cutting through the music. Louis, darling, do you really think a bit of waltzing and frippery will impress this lot? These fools would rather watch Henry wrestle a turkey leg than dance. Henry nodded enthusiastically. I'll take that wager. Louis, looking slightly flustered but still holding his head high, continued his routine, pirouetting around the room as though he were back at Versailles. He struck a dramatic pose at the end, one hand on his heart, waiting for the applause. What he got instead was Charles II juggling 3 loaves of bread while balancing on one foot. Now this is entertainment, Charles proclaimed, tossing one of the loaves at Pepys, who barely caught it before it hit his diary. The room exploded into laughter as Charles began juggling even more items: wine goblets, turkey bones, and a particularly disgruntled-looking French musician. Louis, utterly aghast, threw his hands up. This is barbaric. This is not art. It's British humor, Sir Winston corrected, wiping a tear from his eye. And it's bloody brilliant. At that moment, with perfect timing, the ghostly form of Queen Victoria entered the room, looking utterly perplexed by the scene before her. What on earth is going on here? She demanded, her voice as stern as ever. Henry waved a turkey leg. We're just showing Louis what real fun looks like. Victoria eyed the mess. Charles juggling everything that wasn't nailed down, Louis sulking in a corner, and Pepys furiously scribbling notes. With a sigh, she turned to Winston. I suppose you're behind this chaos? Winston raised his glass, grinning. Of course. Care to join in, Your Majesty? Victoria rolled her eyes, but couldn't suppress a smile. Oh, why not? Someone fetch me a drink. As the night wore on, Louis eventually relaxed enough to join the laughter, though he couldn't resist the occasional dramatic sigh whenever Charles made another joke at his expense. Even the French orchestra eventually gave up trying to be serious and joined in, one of the violinists challenging Henry to an impromptu duel with a turkey bone. By the end of the evening, the halls of Westminster rang with ghostly laughter, the spirits of monarchs, statesmen, and diarists all mingling in chaotic harmony. Louis XIV, though defeated in his quest to elevate the evening, grudgingly admitted that British humor had its charm. And as the Sun King clinked glasses with Charles II, he declared, perhaps there is room in the afterlife for both grandeur and ridiculousness. Cheers to that, Sir Winston said with a wink, raising his glass once more. Long may the mischief reign. And so, in the ghostly world of Westminster, where history and hilarity met in equal measure, Louis XIV learned the ultimate lesson. Even the Sun King can stand to loosen up and maybe, just maybe, learn how to juggle a turkey leg. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. To learn more about South Africa's leading accessibility software, visit www.polispeaks4u.co.za and support this meaningful dyslexic initiative. Thank you for watching.